Bubbly water. Okay. Yeah, I've had some beers.
Everybody, we're back with Eclectic Soundtrax, episode 60 or number 2 of season 2.
Holy
and we're just saying,
smokes, you guys are up to 60 already?
We're up to 60.
Yeah.
We've got our beers. We've got our bubbly waters. And look at this. Look at this. Big old, I'm going to show you this big old piece of wood here.
What's that?
Big old slab of wood. Still got the business card on it. I'm trying to hide it. The old new logo, which you can't see. But I'm going to use this big old banana-shaped piece of wood to open my bottle.
Wait, hold on.
That's how we're going to kick this.
You don't do it with your teeth?
No, dude, I'm a pussy. I'm not a man.
I thought
delicious advertising Fireman's 4 on this, I guess. Nope. Well, I'm not a very.
I totally jumped on
Jesus.
Skunk's
I'm not a very good Texan, I guess. You seem like you're in good spirits.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay, carry on.
See, this is why we got along. I think we probably just kept interrupting each other when we met. But let me tell the story of how I know you, how we met, right? So it's a pretty good story. Like, you and I are both friends with Jeff Henson.
Yes.
And we've both known Jeff Henson here in Austin, Texas a long time. And Jeff has his studio, Red Nova Studios, and plays in various bands, plays with the band Duel. Yeah, Jay ain't listening to this shit. But anyway, old Jeff Henson. So Jeff got married and it was like, yeah, Skunk, I want you to play the wedding, ceremony music. They got Dale Watson to do the reception, which was incredible. We'll talk about that. But yeah, dude, I'll get there, man. But and so then he's like, yeah, my buddy Jamie, blah de blah, is coming down. I don't know. Are you living in Calgary at the time then too, right? Because you used to live in Austin many years ago. Okay.
Yes, for a long time.
And so you came down with your wife.
Somewhat recently moved back to Calgary. Yeah, carry on.
Right. And so you came down for the wedding. And I met you. We had, one night over at Jeff's. And it was this whole thing about like, oh, man, Jamie's got the ear and he's the best in the world. And he does. And we all hear this stuff sometimes. We're like, okay, yeah, whatever. I'm sure he's good, but no fucking shit. Like, when we started playing, like, any song Jeff played, he was like, and then and this one. And you were just like, oh, like, just everything. I mean, we're talking, ladies and gentlemen, with a real deal professional musician, like, no bullshit. I mean, your resume is insane. You played with everybody. Like, you worked with David Byrne. I think you played with Yo-Yo Ma, Pearl Jam, and then like Christopher Cross. I don't know, right? Like 500 different famous people. You've run the gamut and toured the world, I guess. But anyway, so and don't you have one of those? It's probably, I don't know if you have a Stradivarius, but you got some crazy ass, expensive, badass old school violin, right?
I do. I'd like to have a Stradivarius. Are you kidding me? It'd be fantastic. Yeah. But I did.
Well, so what do you have? Because it's.
Well, years ago, I played on a Strad. We had, it was about 8 instruments, mostly violins, on loan from a shop in Dallas. And it's now defunct, but it was called Austin Chamber Orchestra. And so players came down from Dallas and some of us there in Austin. And interestingly enough, I played on a different Italian violin, a Balestrieri, and I actually preferred that one. Price tag on that one was $250K. The Strad was a little over $1 million. And that's late 90s. That's 20 years ago. That's only 20 years ago. But it's gone up a lot. Like,
it's insane.
You have to realize what is it? Somewhat recently, I think the highest so far for a violin, I think it was upwards of 30 million. I know it was in the 20s. Lord. But back to my violin, and thanks for the question. I call her my gal. 1879.
Wow.
French instrument. Actually, interestingly enough, at 2 brothers who were luthiers who made instruments. And their workshop was in London, England. But 1879, Charles Boulanger, with 2 L's. Voullangier. And it's been with me a long time.
Those make great Christmas gifts, by the way.
You should try to find them.
Go grab yourself an 1879 violin and
if you're lucky, you can hit a couple special people on the list. You guys are all serious now.
You know, the 1%.
About violin history. Wait a second. It's getting serious. Serious.
What is this? This is not how... This is the whole thing. Like now, when you and I met, we met really briefly at Jeff's one night and just kind of basically was putting together a set. He was just like... And it was such a great set of music because it was all this, he's a rock and roller guys, all this great old stuff like, I remember like...
Yeah, some Elvis Costello.
Who does Bust? Elvis Costello, what's the song? Allison, right? Elvis Costello. I think there was a Billy Joel. There was Bridge Over Troubled Water. There was that song Bus Stop. And I'm thinking the Hollies, but I may be wrong. I think there might have been some Beach Boys. All this great classic.
Me and Julio down
we did a Paul Simon song. I thought we did Bridge Over Troubled Water.
We did that too. But it wasn't Bus. What are you talking about? Bus Stop?
Oh, okay. No, we did Bus Stop. See, that's what I'm saying, Vic. He didn't know the songs. He was just like, wait, what is it? I heard the melody once. Okay, I know it. And I'm going like, oh, Jesus.
You're probably right. Because I'm now going back and I'm thinking about the tunes I might be missing, but no.
I love the way you're like, I mean, yeah, I do that, but I don't know. But like, so we met up one time at Jeff's place.
Yes. And thank
sort
you
of
for
like,
that.
we're like, oh, cool. Here's the set. No, I mean, yeah, you're an amazing musician. And so then the only time we ever rehearsed was, we both had the set list, and I actually think I made some charts, and I mean, I'm sure you knew the music, of course, but like, and then we at the wedding reception, right, where everyone was kind of running the drills and doing the thing, you and I just went out back and like ran through the songs a couple of times, and then we all went to Nutty Brown and had some lunch or whatever.
So backing up a bit, right? I don't remember people running drills. Like prior to the wedding,
not like military drills. I mean,
running through some drills.
They were running track, lifting weights, boot camp, wedding boot camp. Yeah.
The thing about a wedding,
that's why we were like, we're the music. I didn't want to do any of that shit, so I was like, no, we're the musicians.
Texas in April or May, I believe it was. Is it's not hot at all. So absolutely, the thing you want to do before putting on a suit or a tuxedo is absolutely do a lot of physical exercise outside as much as possible.
Correct. Yes.
In the humidity. Make sure you can get sweating as much as possible. It's exactly what you're looking to do. That goes back to my, I'm thinking about all the time.
That's why I love playing outside summer. Oh man, do I have some wedding stories and just brutal Texas heat, getting married in June and all that stuff. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it was a spring wedding, and I think it was relatively nice, for Texas anyway. I don't think it was insanely hot that I remember. Really, was it really?
Yeah.
Oh.
But anyhow, I know this is your deal, and so your fans know this podcast, and so they know you. So let me flip it around and throw it back at you and say, as I've been watching over these years, the A through Z of what you've been up to for the Ghost Country. You're out there killing it, man.
You have been watching
pandemic times.
You've been watching the A through Z of what I've been doing.
No, it's social media, buddy.
Yes.
That's unless we're doing this every night. Yeah. Tune in every night. We're going to be people are like, oh man, they're at it again. No, you're playing. You're doing all kinds of stuff, man. You're in like 17 bands. No, I quit a couple. It's only 15 now.
Right.
Yeah. And
well, I tell you what I'm doing. One of the things I'm doing lately is the Invincible Czars. I don't know if you ever heard of those guys when you were in Austin. Been around for a while.
On that.
And I love playing with the
Czars. That's a good merit.
Yeah, thank you. I love that gig. For years, people would be like, "Oh man, you should do soundtrack stuff with me." And so that, to me, like getting in that group was a natural thing. And I just thought it was such a cool thing. So playing to films and obviously working with violin and more of that classical, some of the classical instrumentation and woodwinds and strings and stuff, but also mixed with the rock instrumentation of electric guitar, drums, So yeah, that's a really cool one.
Does the guy in the middle talk at all?
No, I mean, because now not only do I yap, you're a yapper. So Vic's not going to get to say shit for this podcast.
Yeah,
Vic,
I'm
you
just
need to
Google.
insert yourself.
No, you guys keep talking. I'm just going to Google like hot chicks from 80s action films where you guys talk.
Yeah, that's what Vic does. He's just
He's like, hey Vic, are you looking that up that we just talked about? I'm like, no, I'm just looking at I don't know, Holly Berry or something like that.
Are you listening along to the conversation? You need to be following along. If we have questions and
violin, weddings in June, hot. Yeah.
See, whenever you said the word hot, Vic was like, oh yeah, I'm going to Google hot chicks.
Yeah, I'm going to Google hot chicks. Yeah.
But here's the thing, Jamie. Now, you recently ran for mayor of Calgary, which I think is amazing. Amazing. I don't want to say surprising, but I mean, you're a musician, and I mean, that's got to be your overall identity, I would think, as a professional musician that you've been doing for many years, and you've taught, and you've played, and you've toured, and you've recorded. You've done everything in that business, I'm assuming, right? Done a lot of stuff, worked with a lot of people.
I've been lucky to do a lot of different things, and in all the travels and the various. Austin was certainly a huge, long, incredible chapter, and 18 years. And so the opportunities, would have been, it was from 96 until 2014. Although I moved out of Calgary a couple of years prior to that. But anyhow, so the mayor thing. Are we going to do a segue music to mayor, or do you want to talk about the mayor thing at all, or stick in music?
No, sure. We'll come back to the music, actually. But now let me ask you this real quick. So you're originally from Calgary? Is that where you're from?
Yes.
A native Canadian?
Yes.
Okay. And then you moved, I guess you lived in some different places in the U.S. I think you went to Arizona.
I did.
Right? And then came to Texas.
That's right.
To Austin after that.
Right. You toured the warm states.
Exactly.
You wanted to get away from the cold. You want to get away from the cold and go the total opposite desert and armpit humidity climate. Well done, sir.
Thank you.
Mission accomplished.
It.
Went from icicle balls to swamp ass.
Exactly it. No, it's okay.
And then you went.
Okay, so this is at the city level, and for me, the big. Oh God, where to even start? Okay, so growing up here in Canada, that's a certain system. Moved to the US, that's a different system. And I'd love to hear you guys.
What is the biggest? Well, what's the big? Now, here, my overall thought when you say that is, I mean, we all joke about, Americans joke about the fact that Canadians are actually really nice. And there's what are the Canadian accent things? The aboot and the sorry. By the way, I finally got to Canada for the first time with the Invincible Czars, in Toronto. I loved it.
Fantastic.
One of a magazine we're working with here on the podcast that actually puts out our podcast. And we just started for our second season with them. It's called Top Shelf Music in Toronto. And so we've got some good friends in Toronto. I loved it up there. And one thing we all got a kick out of, though, and they're like, oh, man, their street signs are so funny. They're just different, but because anything's different, it's funny, right? But your character of the walking across the street guy was amusing to us Americans. And that's all that was my only takeaway of all of Canada. That was it.
How deep do you want to get, and how big is this audience? Not to be too blunt, because
we've got at least 5 or 6 listeners. So
maybe 7.
It's pretty huge. Yeah, I think we're up to 7 listeners now. But here's the thing, Jamie, like as a huge overall thing, I would say kind of like maybe England, just being over there many years ago. It's like Canada is more socialized than the US, correct? As just a sort of a general starting point, right?
Canada has
Does that make sense?
More social programs.
Correct. Right. And you're an advocate for such things. Did you find a lack of that here in the States, and that you like that aspect of Canada more, and you're pushing for more of such in Calgary, or what? Okay, what are some of the
back to your question?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you guys have healthcare right now?
Yes.
I am not at liberty to say. Yes. Because of ham. You know all about ham.
I do. Without ham.
So I am a proponent for such a wonderful program.
Think
for
about
us
how
musicians.
many people that do not have health care.
Mm-hmm.
Think about how many people that healthcare and the lack of it, and something happens, and that then becomes a big economic issue for them. That's a big difference.
I would say that's true with even for people with healthcare.
Okay,
That
so
can be
that's
a big thing.
issue. Now, here in Canada, what's a big issue on the health front? People say, oh, you're lucky to have health care. And the word is health care. And absolutely give thanks for what we have. If a part of that package, there isn't room or a chapter or a column, whatever you want, however you want to describe it, for dental, for vision, for pharma, and for mental, and ultimately for childcare, we can't really call it healthcare. And sure, there are a lot of people here in Canada that have healthcare plans largely with one of the three levels of government where they may have that. But as I sit here, I don't have coverage for my teeth or my eyes or pharma. Or any sort of mental support.
So this was a big, I tell you what, the mental thing, Jesus, we all need some goddamn mental health care. That's this kind Canada seems a little more chill. You guys aren't just, shooting up schools every 15 seconds up there.
Well, that was the other thing.
Is that not?
When you ask that question.
Is this going to go, go
Skunk,
ahead.
Going back, when you asked the question, two things jumped into my mind right away. You said, what are the differences? Health and guns.
Now, are you saying, so what are you saying by that? Are you saying better overall socialized healthcare in Canada as opposed to the US and less guns, more gun control, or no?
Correct.
I'm trying to understand explain exactly what those differences are.
Let's go to healthcare. You're very lucky to have it through HAM there in Austin. And Vic, are you at liberty to say who yours is through?
It's through my work, through my employer.
So that's not in music or...
No.
Okay. So all the activities, all the things that both of you are up to, bands, music projects, original music, cover bands, would those things give you insurance?
Typically not, as you know, as a musician, right? Maybe if you've got a job as a teacher. I think that's probably... So unless you're in like some high level band.
So unless we use the term day job or whatever it is,
in a school.
That term is, a day job, some sort of...
Right.
Okay. So...
Yeah.
And that's a similar thing here, in that if you're in the freelance world, you'll have coverage for things that are not dental, vision, pharma, mental. So those are big things on a large level. And here in Calgary, there were local issues for sure. And it was fun to meet people along the way and listen to their stories and have people advise me, and people with their ideas give their ideas. And HAM certainly is a good thing there in Austin. The loading zones in and out of venues, those are music specific things. But then as I watch here in Calgary, the broader issues and the larger issues, the unhoused. even beyond insurance, those without a home. And here in Calgary, there have been unique challenges because it's been a similar industry for a long time. We have a very unique situation with our downtown right now.
What do you mean by that?
It's 1/3 vacant.
Also, what is the population?
We're creeping up
geez,
on
like
a
it's got
million and a half.
the Detroit
I think we're at
syndrome.
about 1.4 million
Wow.
now. So we're.
Okay.
I was thinking about earlier.
Well, how much of this is due to the pandemic, though, in terms of vacancy in office buildings? I mean, because obviously a lot of jobs were crushed. I think when you get into high dollar, high big money corporations and sports and all that, they get to bend the rules. We all know this, right? But the private sector businesses get destroyed. And I think that happened a lot during the pandemic, So I think just in terms of you saying vacancy, I would assume some of that had to have been due to the pandemic, right? Or it certainly if it was already a bad situation, it made it exponentially worse, right? But also now a lot more people are working from home, are able to work from home. And some places are like, yeah, this model's working. We don't need an office building. We can get something a lot smaller. So I would think as a general rule, a lot of those, just for the term vacancy, I would think that would be a general trend due to the pandemic. I don't know for sure, but that would be my assumption.
Well,
so how much of this was you coming in from the pandemic, and seeing how much damage that did?
Certainly that's one part of it, Skunk. Absolutely. And it's a whole other podcast to get into what those other things are. But Can this be a two-way thing? Because I want to hear the perspective on the streets. And that last time I went to Austin was that exact trip, 2015. I'm trying to think if there was a time after that. And so this has been 6 years now. And certainly from what I'm seeing in my social media feeds, significant changes as well.
Well, I mean, worldwide change, at least in Western countries, here and affected many places in Europe, obviously, too, based on once the George Floyd thing happened, right? And we saw the Black Lives Matter protests and all that. And that there was a sort of trickle, spiral effect and the defund the police. And I mean, Austin, as far as I know, you may know better than me, Vic, was one of the absolute highest in terms of cutting. I feel like the defund the police here was like 25% or something. Am I correct in that? Or I may have no idea.
It was something. Yeah.
It was pretty high. So there's that. So we can get into Prop A and Prop B, Vic, if you know much about those. 25%
was taken out of Austin Police Department APD's budget annually.
Don't quote me on it, but I think it was a pretty high number. Yeah.
It was a good chunk.
But there's so many ins and outs of that. I don't really know the details. I'm not one to speak intelligently on the subject, but I know there was obviously when all that happened and there was this huge movement to defund police. And I think sometimes, and then, coinciding with that, not maybe directly related to it, but obviously when you've got multiple problems and then you're cutting, law enforcement, not to say that there's not other, sectors or what's the word I'm looking for? Like organizations that can, deal with certain situations, but the homeless issue has been really bad too. And so they kind of went the route of, I think, like San Francisco and LA and some of these California systems where, I mean, they had the guys camping on the street, all that downtown under the bridge all became camping for homeless, all up and down Riverside tents. They I think some of them might still be there. It's not as bad. So they reversed that. I forget what the proposition was on that one. But I know that's a huge problem right now. And I agree, man. I mean, homelessness is a massive problem here and I don't know how it is there. I mean, it sounds like it's similar. I think it's a byproduct of any big city for sure. I mean, it's an unfortunate thing. That doesn't mean it has to be.
Are there
There's got to
live
be
shows in
solutions.
Austin
What
right
are they?
now?
I don't know. Oh, yeah. I mean, dude, you're talking about fucking Texas, man. Texas is just like, you can go fuck yourself. I was a big proponent for the mask. I still am okay with wearing a mask in public. I don't always because I'm vaccinated. And at this point, it's like, you know what? I tried. Fuck it. it's here to stay. It is what it is. And hopefully I don't know, man. But, I mean, we all saw it go down. We don't need to tell everybody what they already know. But I mean, as a general rule, I mean, think about Texas as the kind of very proud, independent state that it is. Yeah. And the governor here, I mean, they lifted the mask mandate. So things are back open.
What is that doing to cases?
Masking
what is that doing
is
to,
kind of optional.
What is it doing to cases? What is it doing to illness? People catching it? What is it? What are those?
I think it's
like data.
I think it's like anything. I don't know what the actual data is because I haven't researched in a while. Like I can bet I can speak for just about everybody. When all this stuff went down, early 2020, we were glued to the television and we were watching the numbers and everyone had their opinions and everyone was losing their minds and we all saw it. And some of us participated and some of us didn't. But I mean, at a certain point, I think human beings, you have to evolve to move on one way or another. And I also think we have short-term memories. I mean, look at 9/11 now, man. It's like, it means nothing to some people or they can't relate or they weren't even born or they think it was all a massive conspiracy. But when that actually happened, a gigantic percentage of the population was fucking fired up, angry, sad, and unified. Most importantly, unified. And it was actually pretty beautiful. And this pandemic did the complete opposite. It tore this country apart. I mean, and I think it's crazy to me that you can see how fast things can shift in a decade or 2 decades.
So what's a normal day?
Nothing's ever perfect, but
okay. So today, and don't have to get into specifics, but in terms of health measures or what it looks like, what was your day? Do you put a mask on to go into?
So for me, I didn't go anywhere today except for I had a rehearsal with Invincible Czars, and so we've all been vaccinated. We all know each other. Sometimes, like when we started jamming with Owen, who's, I don't know if you know Owen Klowski, the drummer. He's playing with us right now. He had a mask on a few times. We were masking a few times when we first started getting together. And but typically we don't.
You're all double vax.
For a long time, all vax, yes, and for a long time we did. But yeah, we're all vaccinated, but that's it. And if I go to like the grocery store or whatever, I wear a mask. My fiance is here. She's living in San Francisco and she's here with her friends for F1 and they're all wearing masks as far as I know. But I think I think there's the option here and some people do it. Some people don't. It seems kind of 50-50. I don't know what you're seeing, Vic, but right. You don't see it much at bars. You don't see it maybe so much at restaurants. But you do see a lot of people. And one thing that I do see, and I think it's the private businesses are probably making these decisions, is that most places you go into, the employees are wearing masks. I think it's mandatory for them. And then, everyone else is kind of, I think it's simmered down a bit where you don't have people fighting in the grocery stores and shit like that anymore. But I understand. I was fucking pissed, man. And what pissed me off was just the callous nature of some people where, hey, yeah, we're all freaking out. We know the media can blow things out of proportion, and I get that. But also, just don't go out of your way to be an asshole. And does it kill you to put a mask on your face? Do you have to be defiant right off the bat? Can we just go, let's just do this for a little bit and kind of see what's going on here, right? That's what really triggered me in the beginning of it. And I was team masks, so to speak.
Yeah.
And like I said, now here we are almost 2 years in. It is what it is. This is going to be a thing. That we're going to have to live with and probably get vaccinated for. And then, some people are willing to lay down their lives to not get a vaccine. One nice thing I will say about myself is I have friends that are very much cover the political spectrum. Very, you know what I mean? And so I get a lot of input from different sides and I always listen. I would assume you, especially as someone who's run for political office now, you do the same. You need to listen to what people are saying and consider that there are, especially in a free country, that the value of different opinions, and thought processes and all that kind of stuff. It's important and it's vital. So I think it's a shame that we've been conditioned to a certain degree, perhaps, to immediately want to go on the offense and assault each other and belittle each other and all this kind of nonsense, when really we should be courteous we don't want to go out of our way to harm anybody directly or indirectly. Like that upsets me. But as long as you're not doing that, I'm totally 100% to hear anyone's opinion on a matter, sure. Even if I sternly disagree. And that's another thing I think is really cool about this podcast, that we don't have to agree with everybody. You don't have to hate people because you disagree with them. That's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, down here in Texas, Jamie, it's pretty, it's pretty open. I do see a lot of people wearing masks. Most businesses have masks, but a lot of people don't go with them. So it's not a mandatory thing. Up there in Canada, though, what's going on up there? Are you guys still pretty hardcore with the mandatory mask or what?
Again, that's a really long. We should just do a series of podcasts. It'll just be the
Sure.
Canada series.
You can be season 2. Yeah, the Canada series. Well, like I said, we're working with Top Shelf now in Toronto, so you're in Canada. It makes sense.
Well, the situation here in Alberta. So you guys are probably up on this. We have provinces here.
Mm-hmm.
Skunk's like, go on. So
no, I'm aware of that much. I don't know that much, but I do know that.
Okay, so the situation here in
some provinces speak French.
You call me dumb?
I did not say that. So the situation here in Alberta is unique and has been unique this whole time, because with one similarity with Texas, because their Governor Abbott has he can call the shots. Would that be fair to say?
I definitely feel like there's a mentality of my way or the highway sometimes with some of these
what
guys.
I mean is
in Ted Cruz's case, it's my way to Cancun or.
Well, there's a situation here where the current governing provincial party, there are many who are MLAs, so that's the equivalent to a politician at the state level. So MLA is a member of the Legislative Assembly. So here in Alberta, the capital, that's in the capital, which is Edmonton. So I'm here in Calgary, south of that, about 3.5 hour drive south. So, here, the Premier of Alberta, which you want to think of it as similar to the governor of a state, it has been driven by a few people at the top of that governing political party. And so the idea that, back to your previous point, your previous paragraph about listening to all the points of view,
mm-hmm.
that has been lacking in what has been driving the machinery, the decision-making, the management aspect of what politics is.
Right. And that's not what a free society should be built upon. Am I correct?
No. And let's make reality and science and data and expertise the order of the day again. Anyhow, I'm going off.
No, I love that. I love what you just said, but I want to ask you this. And this isn't like some sort of like argument against you. When was it the order of the day? When do you think were the good old days of science? Because for a lot of mankind's history, it's been the boogeyman and a bunch of bullshit, and then and people can construe that. However, I'm not in any way saying saying that as a religious thing. I'm just saying, like, it's just uneducated. If you're not educated, you don't know. But if you have science and mathematics, and these sort of things, they exist for a reason. And so if you have these things and you believe them to be fact or accurate, you should heed them for the betterment of your people, right? But
one would think
a lot of people don't seem to want to do that. One would think that. However,
okay.
You also have people that want to tear down anything You have some people that want to tear down anything for whatever reason that already exists. And so I think there's, you know what I think? There's just so much fucking contradiction with all this shit that
but
nobody can get it right because they're so up their own ass about things.
Okay, let me cut in. But your question was about science. And you said, when was it? Okay, so let's go back.
When were the good old days of science?
Let's go back a little over 100 years. Okay. And to show how quickly we change and evolve as human beings. So we had 14 to 18, right? The First World War. And there were horrific wars before that. 39 to 45, the Second World War. So the sweet spot, back to your question, 1950 to 1980. And what happened in that time was the biggest growth of the middle class. And then gaslighting started happening in 1980. Trickle down. The idea that those who already have, who have the capital, who have the resources, that we should give them more. And then since 1980, it's been the shrinking of the middle class. And certainly people at the bottom are struggling more than they ever have before. That's true in Canada, and that's true in the United States. And so corporations and people with wealth from 1950 to 1980 were taxed at a rate of 90. And so people think, well, that's obscene. That's such a crazy high number. If you look at people who are at the very top and you look at how they have gained wealth in the pandemic, and we're talking in terms of dozens and hundreds of billions, at a certain point, capitalism is it is absolutely rigged for only those at the very top. So to say 90%, that's crazy. If you have 100 million, and then 500 million, then 800 million, then $1.5 billion, and then 5 billion, and then 15 billion, and then 50 billion, and then 200 billion, and you're gaining wealth because of the stock market. The idea that you're taxed at 90% is no longer obscene. That's the only way for a check and a balance on the system.
I'm certainly not going to disagree that at a certain point, wealth becomes so obscene and unspendable that it's just going to use the term trickle down to your, throughout your family tree and all that kind of stuff. And so a sliding scale of taxation doesn't seem the most obscene principle to me. And I mean, when you have $100 billion, what's $1 billion, But I think this about all these political, or at least capitalism and socialism. Let's use those two examples. Like on the surface, I think they both, as an ideology, they both offer things that are appealing. And in a perfect world where people are civil and good to each other, they can all work. But that's the problem, was it not? So when you talk about that, capitalism can work in a private sector of a person having the ability to open their own business and that kind of thing. But when you have a corporation that grows to such a monstrous, place that it just comes in and crushes all the small business, is that even capitalism anymore? Now that's monopolization. So is that capitalism anymore anyway?
Well, we're in a crisis of capitalism right now.
Right.
We are absolutely in a crisis of capitalism. And what you're describing is becoming the order of the day. Now that's what's obscene. But back to your point, and I don't know if you were saying that Canada is socialist, and I certainly don't want to put words in your mouth. We're not a socialist country here. And again, there are a lot of people who make
your medicine more so, but you have a more socialized medical system in general. Is that correct?
Well, again, social structures and social services.
Social structures. Okay.
Social services. That's not socialism, because the socialism, the idea that the masses.
Oh no, I didn't say it was I didn't mean to say it was a socialist country. If I said that,
a lot of people do, and so we have more social services, but technically here in Canada, we are a constitutional monarchy because we
You still have like parliament and that kind of stuff.
well, that's what we have.
You still have that old school English stuff going on.
There is still, and so I was posting on that because I don't think it Bermuda? Bermuda
seems very monopolized.
I think it was Bermuda just recently elected their president or prime minister, woman, and they put it into their constitution to sever the ties with the United Kingdom. That's what Canada should do.
Sound like a good old fashioned American to me, boy.
Well, it's let's look at what
America
I mean, come on.
let's look
But I
at,
get it. That
let's
does
look
seem a
at
little
what royalty
old
means.
school, man. Parliament.
Let's look at what royalty means.
Yeah.
Okay? It's a history of racism, and they control the money, and they control the everything. And you can be born into that. And if you're not born into that, well, what year is it? These guys are like, we didn't do anything.
I don't.
It's crazy that we have that. It's crazy that exists. It's obscene.
I agree. I mean, there's like some really old school models that are grossly outdated. We could probably list many, and some people would be highly offended. But people don't want to let go of what they know, right? I mean, for God's sake, back to what you said. I love the whole make America great again, because it's like, okay, when was it great? Now, having said that, I'll be the first to defend this country when people who live here and want to shit all over it. Well, go somewhere else and see how you get treated when you just shoot your mouth off. You might get a bullet in your head. So it's like, I get it. Nothing's perfect. We've had a ugly history like anybody, but there has been immense progress. And so we talk back to that baby boomer era, post World War II. Yeah, racism was a nasty thing. And thank God the civil rights movement happened and finally started crawling out of that. And I think huge progress happened between the end of World War II and the 1980s to where I came into being and the way I grew up. And is there still that stuff? Sure, but it's nowhere near what it was. And it took 100 years after the Civil War to get to that place. And that's disgusting and despicable. But having said that, this country has made that progress. And I'm sure Canada and many, many other countries have. And if you are a country that has not, I mean, come on, now we're talking about two completely different points in history, where if you have a place where slavery is still commonplace, where I'm sure it is, right? And I mean, slavery, unfortunately, has been around since the dawn of man and continues to exist, right? One could at least, maybe one could argue it was a necessary evil at one point in time, but is that the truth in this modern age with the industrialization and technology that we have now? Doesn't seem like it should be, right? But certainly not now.
And Skunk, those questions, with all respect, are for racialized people. And then for me to listen. But back to the economic thing.
I mean,
Back to the economic thing. So many more people now getting a second job and working so many hours a week, chasing something that doesn't exist.
I'm a musician. I know, with my own band, I totally understand. And I play rock music. Dude, I get it. No, I mean, I'm kind of making a joke, but I'm also not making a joke. Let me ask you this, though. Here's the dilemma.
Those are
Maybe you have a solution.
We could laugh it off, but
they are.
But you connected it to the thread of, because
I'll absolutely connect them, because I think there's always someone in power.
That's why I'm saying it.
Yeah.
And if it's my sort of my platform and my kind of soapbox, it's going to address all of those things. How are we treating musicians? How are we treating people who get up and play live music? How are we treating people who create music? How are we treating people who write music? How are we treating people who create art, who make stuff with their hands, who are creative? Whatever those creative skills are, entrepreneurs or small businesses. You mentioned that earlier. Those are such important parts of society. And so for somebody who's always chosen that crazy path, I've fallen through the cracks.
Which is astounding, right? It is, because it's like, you can look at your resume and what you've done and wait a minute, this guy's not fucking living the high life? What are you talking about?
That's the point.
Right? But am I hearing you right? Where it's just like, no, dude, I'm not, sitting super pretty over here. I mean, I'm sure you made a living and I'm assuming relatively comfortable, but you're not rich. Very few musicians I know are, unless you're
rich.
just like,
I'm rich in
most people though, in any business, top of the food chain, right?
I'm rich in so many other ways, back to the crisis of capitalism. If we're going to measure it with beans, how many beans do you have? Right? What's money? We made that up. It's a human-made construct.
Do you feel that whole system is collapsing right now, though? The currency system here. I mean, how long is paper money going to be a thing? Now we've got all this cryptocurrency and stuff like that. I mean, is this whole system falling? Yes, but I mean that it seems like crypto is making a statement, man.
What I mean
it only
is,
seems like it'll keep moving that way.
Those transactions are via a piece of plastic, right?
Yeah, paper money's very,
I'm talking
literal paper money is becoming less and less and less.
Bitcoin,
Cash.
all those other things, that's a whole other thing. Ethereum, that's a whole other thing.
Right. I'm talking about things based on the dollar, right?
Well,
I don't know if that's going to be decent. A lot of people are pushing for decentralization.
Okay, so
maybe it'll happen.
Here we are as we're wrapping it up, right? What are we at? 46, 47 minutes? Wrapping it up, Jamie gets all super deep in on it. We have to address energy production and consumption. Vic's getting a kick out of this. This is worldwide, gents. This is not just Calgary.
I can't even see. I know. I can't even see Vic. You guys keep disappearing. Oh, is it because Vic's looking at porn? He's bored.
Okay,
no,
so
I really want to hear Vic. I actually really want to hear Vic chime in. Go ahead, Jamie.
We have to evolve on that. Absolutely. And related to that is we got to
evolve on what?
We got to take better care of Mother Nature. We're at a climate crisis, and
no argument.
And Skunk's like, we're going to talk about music. And back to the human level.
Oh, this podcast is so boring.
Back to the human level thing. It's the systemic racism, systemic sexism, and systemic ableism. And I've in this journey through my wife's work, talking to people who, again, that's a whole million other podcasts. People whose lived experience is different. And we have to figure those things out. We have to fix them.
Systemic racism, sexism, these are obvious flaws with mankind throughout many civilizations, obviously. I would hope that our current cultures in these countries have made probably some of the most immense strides in history, not to say that we can't do even better, of course. What do you mean by ableism? Define that one.
So if somebody's lived experience is in a wheelchair, I ask you about your day. What was your day like in terms of, masking? Well, what is person XYZ's day like in terms of getting around city XYZ?
So being cognizant of people with, for lack of a better word, disability, if we're talking about that particular, case, just to be cognizant of how does this, we need to make sure that this person has equal access.
So say on a city level,
whatever a person,
whether it's Calgary or Austin,
right?
What does the mobility issue look like in terms of sidewalks, in terms of ramps, in terms of general ability to get around the city. So here in Calgary, those issues with snow and big time winter for, a substantial chunk of the year, what does that look like? And then all of those things are impacted by when there's new construction and there was an existing sidewalk or ramp or this or that. And I've also had a lot of questions and a lot of discussions with people who are 2S LGBTQ. And so here in up the road in Edmonton, there was the first Métis elected member of parliament, and they are also Two-Spirit. So
Vic looks like he's like, what? I think explain what this is all moving so fast. I was just talking about this with my band last night. I mean, because there's always new things sort of being added on, and you're, so LGBTQ is
and so here we are.
Term everyone's familiar with that. But when you say 2S, what does that mean?
Panel, so any day-to-day issues
what does 2S
Indigenous mean? Or any day-to-day issues of a woman, we need to sit here and listen and then bring on a panel of women. You follow?
Yes and no. I do. I do partly. Here's my argument, and I don't want to say it's an argument, but I think this is an extremely valid thing to always consider. Yeah, we should be completely inclusive of everybody and not prejudge based on skin color, sex, identification, all these things. We're all intelligent human beings. Let's assume, right? So it's like, but if someone's a fucking moron, I'm not going to go, hey, I'm going to listen to you just because you're a woman. No, you're a moron. It doesn't matter what you are. So I think it's like contingent on what are the credibility of these people. If we're going to have a panel of individuals, sure, let's diversify. But I think that they all need to bring something to the table. And I'm not saying that you're just like grabbing, Joe Schmo.
Well, then that comes back to expertise.
Whoever, Jane Doe.
It comes back to lived experience.
That comes back to education.
Okay. And education.
And equal education, right?
Right. Skunk, thank you.
Equal opportunity education. Exactly. I agree with you there.
And
yes, absolutely. 1,000%.
When one has access to education, it opens up the world. It opens up that
correct
access to evolution, that access to opening one's mind, that access to compassion, or, hey, let me think about this a different way, or let me think about this, somebody else's somebody else's lived experience. And so, yes. And right. I certainly don't want to,
that in of itself is an intelligent way of thinking as opposed to an ignorant way of thinking.
And
like,
the
literally, that is the definition
of that. That's another thing. Every single person, look at the cost of education now, especially at the university level, especially with, any school.
I think before you even get to the university level, the public schools need to be accountable, that teachers need to be way better paid. So much more money needs to be put into equal education. I mean, I'm a proponent for that because that's where it all starts. And if that system's broken, everything after that's going to be broken, And we're out.
And
I'll be running for mayor, Austin.
We don't
have
that. Right? So we have to, I hate the word, but we have to fight for that.
Yeah, sure. I agree.
Go ahead.
I want to say something real quick, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
More important, unless one of us is just a monster, a racist, just horrible bastard of a person, right? Which neither of us are. Like, we're human beings. We're naturally flawed. We've done dumb shit. We said stupid shit. We've harmed ourselves and others, not horrible, ways, but we're flawed. By nature, human beings are flawed, of course, right? But I don't think either one of us are bad people with bad intentions. And so what I think is more important than just about anything, first of all, education and having the ability to listen, process, react, and
yes.
And not base everything on emotion, base things on factual information or thinking and considering, and not just everything is emotionally reactionary. And I think in the end of the day, like, two people we respected each other when we became quick friends and had a blast when we hung out after Jeff's wedding and everything. And I mean, absolute blast. I mean, you and your wife, it was such a pleasure to meet you, man. And you weren't one of these snobby, uptight dudes. You're this fantastic. And most people, I very humbly say this about so many of my friends that I've met who are fantastic, world-class musicians. I do not say that lightly. And they are very, very down to earth, humble, wonderful people. And you've taken it to another level. You can get involved in politics on the local, not just talking about it, but actually taking action. So I commend you for all of that. And it doesn't even matter if I were to disagree with you, even if I sternly disagree with you or vice versa. In my mind, there's no reason that we should not remain friends, talk about it, because the second that we break that, we're losing. Right? We're doing everything against what what I think we're talking about, what we're trying to do.
Exactly.
As a collective body of people of all shapes and sizes and colors and sexes work together to better our society. For everybody. You know?
Exactly. And cut.
Scene. Okay, Vic, what the hell does 2S mean? Or S2? I don't know. And I don't mean that. I'm not trying to be an asshole. I don't know what it means. Like, I don't know.
There's so much information. It's hard to parse through
that's
it. Just
a whole other,
from what
a
I
whole
gather.
other episode.
Yeah. It has
Oh man, you're going to leave us
indigenous
hanging?
people.
That's fucked up, dude.
Well,
Come on. Give us a synopsis, because I really do want to know what this is about.
It's spirited. It's something to do with indigenous people.
I guess I'm not following what it's implying.
I don't follow, to be honest, I don't follow it either. And so it's hard for me to explain it. And there's just,
Jamie, can you explain it for us?
I'm going to leave you hanging, and I'm going to say to you,
oh, you bastard,
if that interests you, or if that's something that you want to broaden your knowledge, your lived experience. Look at getting a guest on here whose lived experience, is
interesting. I have friends, gay, bi, lesbian, trans, but this one is a term that I have not heard before.
Well, it's certainly related.
And I love talking to people of all backgrounds and life experiences, because that's how you learn. And I think, you know what I find, and you know what I always say this about the podcast, that is one of my favorite things, is I feel like every single person we talk to, they're all different. They're all from different places, different, colors and sexes and identifications and you name it. And we get along with everybody, man. We talk. And that's what it's about. And I think that's what's more important than anything.
Absolutely.
So I love the fact that you're out there doing that and listening to people and talking to people and learning and trying to better your community, it doesn't, in whether I agree or disagree with all the, whatever, any or all of the methods you're fighting for. Hey, man, you're out there doing it. And so many people can just sit on their fucking ass and bitch about everything. That shit pisses me off. Go do something about it if you're pissed off. Now, and when I say that, I don't mean go burn down buildings and riot and destroy everything. Peacefully protest.
Find a way. Back to your words. Find a way to work together.
Find a way to.
And constructively evolve and build a solution to it.
Right. Yeah. Man, MLK had it right, dude. Like,
absolutely.
Thank God for we need those moments in history. They're ugly, uncomfortable moments, but they lead us to the better place. Is there an actual promised land? Call me a cynic. I don't think a utopia is not a possibility, because I do think that, unfortunately, I think that most human beings are, you could argue this all kinds of ways, but I think we're a little bit of everything, but I feel like overall probably inherently decent. We won't want to hurt other people. We don't want to, but some people aren't. Some people are just evil people. And that's just a sad reality, man.
Listen, gents, can I cut in?
Fortunately, not the majority.
I'm losing battery here.
You got to run, huh?
And I think that's great, because we're at an hour, and you had such awesome words. Vic can chop it up to end on your awesome words before, where you were like, peace and harmony, man.
Yeah, before I started talking about the evils of men. Well, Jamie, dude, come to Austin again, dude, or I got to come up to Calgary, man. Hey, if I come up to Canada, let's hang, man. I'd love to see you again and hang out, man. Or if you're ever down here, hit me up.
I'd love to. And I don't talk about it, but you said that you have 6 listeners, so maybe we're safe. So congrats on when you get married.
Oh man, we have not set a date. We got engaged last year, and
you're
funny enough, she came down here.
Right?
Seriously? Yeah, I'll tell you a quick story. But like, she came down here right with it for a weekend. The pandemic happened. San Francisco sheltered in place within a week or two. Whatever, the whole country shut down. She was here for several months, and even though it was a horrible time, it was kind of great that we just had all that time together. We bounced back and forth. We're busy. There's a lot of stuff going on. But I think hopefully next year. Possibly maybe later in the year, but Vic is absolutely 100%. Last week, our first guest of season 2 was the drummer, Rob Hammersmith of Skid Row. We are both very long-time Skid Row fans. And I straight up was like, hey, you guys got to play our wedding. So we're waiting to hear from Skid Row. Dude, you are fucking invited, bro. I would love you to come. I started to say earlier when we were talking about the wedding that we met at, and Dale Watson, and a lot of people know Dale Watson, fantastic. Yes. I don't know what you call outlaw country or whatever style.
I call it
fantastic awesome. Band. Great songwriter.
Yeah.
Just awesome. Just amazing. And I know Jeff's a huge fan. They used to always go dancing at, what was that place? Broken Spoke. But anyway, Dale Watson played Jamie and I played the ceremony music, and Dale Watson played and I just was such an amazing moment. He played the reception at Jeff's wedding, and Jamie's hanging around. He's got his $250,000 violin. I'm sure people ask to sit in and jam, and you're just like, yeah, okay, all right. But I think Dale Watson was kind of like, yeah, okay. And he introduced, he was like, hey, everybody, Jamie's going to get up here and play a little something on his fiddle. And, and it just kind of like, Joe Schmo is going to get up here. And dude, I am not fucking making this shit up. I wish speaking of batteries dying, my camera died or I'd have that shit on film. I was so pissed. Jamie got up there and lit it up, and the whole place was like, holy shit. You could see Dale Watson and the band were just like, he started getting excited. Everyone was like, holy fuck. Like, he just went to town, dude. And it was incredible. So yeah, Jamie, you're awesome, dude. Fantastic musician, great guy. Pleasure to know you. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast, man.
It's a pleasure. And
best of luck with all your endeavors.
Thank you for that. And so next time, or we'll continue this via text, and we can catch each other up to date on other stuff.
Yeah, we got to stay in touch, man.
Well, I mean, like that we didn't.
All right, brother. We'll be well.
That we didn't touch on here.
Well, normally Vic and I just ramble until the other guest falls asleep, but you're pretty good about being. You got shit to do. You got a city council meeting to get to, so we'll let you go, man. Thanks again for making the time, and always so great to talk to you again. And Jamie, hey, how the hell do you say your last name? Because I don't want to fuck it up.
Desautels.
Oh, fuck. There you have it. Yeah. That guy was on the podcast with him here for episode 60. Thank you so much, James.
Thanks, Vic.
Until next time.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much. It's been
nice meeting you.
Cheers. Yeah, you bet.
All right, brother.
Awesome.
Until next time, this is Skunk Manhattan, Victor Ramos with the Eclectic Soundtrax. Later.
Hey, folks. That concludes another episode of the podcast. Guest links will be available in the show notes. We'd like to thank our friends at Top Shelf Music for showcasing the podcast on their site. Be sure and check them out at topshelfmusicmag.com for the latest music news, reviews, and events. We'd also like to thank the folks over at Tragan Guitars, Godin Guitars, Ernie Ball Strings, and 5 Iron Woodworks. Have a great week, and catch you on the next one.